In January, Garmin released their top-of-the-line outdoor do-everything watch, the Fenix 7. But surprisingly, alongside that, they released the second generation of the Epix. The new Epix is basically a Fenix with a slightly different screen, and the Epix has been a watch that I have really enjoyed wearing over the last 5 months or so. But 3 weeks ago, Garmin released two very compelling updates to their Forerunner series of watches. Garmin released the Forerunner 255, and they released this, the all-new 955. And like the Fenix and the Epix, the 955 has a 1.3-inch touchscreen display, multi-band GPS. But interestingly, the 955 also has some new software updates that the more expensive Epix and Fenix don't have, even though the 955 is almost half the price. But we'll get into all of that in more detail in this video. We'll go over the basics of both of these watches and focus on those exact differences between these two very nice GPS watches from Garmin. Both of these watches come in, two different versions. The Epix comes in a slate steel version and a sapphire titanium option. The steel version costs $900, and the titanium version with the more durable sapphire lens cost $1,000. And then coming in at about half the price is the 955, which has a non-solar option that costs $500. That's the one I have here, and a solar version that costs $600. Both the non-solar and the solar version of the 955 come in a white and black version, and the Epix comes in a black or a slate steel version, and the titanium versions come in a white or black color. And unfortunately, I'll be showing the white Epix Sapphire Titanium Edition and the white 955 non-solar version, so that could be a little bit confusing in this video, but I have what I have here, guys. Maybe I can try to drop some labels into the video as I kind of display these, just trying to make it clear in the edit. But one way that you can tell the difference is the Epix has a steel, or in this case, a titanium bezel and a titanium or steel back casing, whereas the 955 is all plastic. Now, both of the straps on these watches are made of that stretchy silicone material, but I will say that actually getting the strap off of the 955 is a real pain in the ass. The Garmin 955 engineers, I think that they hate people who want to change watch straps or wear watches. I would say basically they have no respect for your choice of watch straps whatsoever. I actually recently received some secret documentation on how the meeting went when they were actually choosing watch straps. Here's actually a dramatic reenactment of that actual meeting. All right, team, last thing real quick, all we have to do is decide on the strap for the 955. Last time with the 945, we did fantastic. That thing was almost impossible to change. We used these weird screwdrivers. You had to actually put them in and twist them. Impossible, nearly impossible to do. They're not even real screwdrivers. Johnson, that was just brilliant work, buddy. Brilliant work. But people are still trying to change the watch bands on these watches. So we need something new. We need something creative for the new 955. What do you got? New guy?
Yes. I do. I actually do have some ideas. I was thinking that we could just use the quick fit straps that we have on the Epix watch and the Fenix watch series. They're really cool. You just snap them off and you can snap on different watch bands. We have lots of these. They'll just fit and they'll just work. It shouldn't be a problem at all. It's gonna save us a lot of money.
You're fired. Johnson, you got any ideas? Yeah, I got something. I've been cooking up. What if no screwdrivers, no screws, no nothing? Good luck changing the strap then. What if they had to wiggle some sort of sharp knife-like object in between the strap and the pins and just wedge it out?
That's what I'm talking
under
about.
the strap.
Brilliant.
Even if they did try to change their strap, they're gonna cut their hands doing it. Nice work, Johnson.
Wait, boss.
Good work.
Just hear me out for a second. We have like 1 million of these quick fit straps. They're they're sitting in a warehouse down in the basement. They're actually costing us money, and then to develop a new strap would just cost us more money. I think we should really consider just using a quick fit strap on these.
Johnson, call security.
But the Epix team, they went with that quick fit strap. Super easy. You can just at any time pull down and switch it out with any other compatible quick fit strap. I don't know why, the Forerunner series didn't just do the same thing. But both screens are actually the same size. They're both a 1.3 inch screen. One of the biggest and, I would say probably the most obvious differences between these two devices is that Epix screen has that, vibrant AMOLED display, whereas the 955 has that more traditional transflective display. And typically, transflective displays do better in bright sunlight conditions, whereas AMOLED screens are, more often better for indoor situations. I haven't had any issues using the Epix outdoor in direct sunlight. And the Epix resolution is also slightly sharper. The Forerunner 955 has a 260 pixel resolution, whereas the Epix has a 416 pixel resolution. So the watch text and the graphs and even the mapping will look slightly more detailed on the Epix. Now that blindingly bright AMOLED display does take a hit on the battery life if you just leave it on all the time. For me, I've been getting about 6 days of battery life, and I'm doing, about an hour of GPS intensive activity per day. And I'm using the Epix in that kind of always on display mode. If that doesn't sound great to you, you can turn the always on display off. It'll just turn on when you actually raise your wrist to look at the watch. And that does save quite a bit of battery life. Doing that, you can expect to go from 6 days to something like 16 days without needing a charge. And I have the non-solar version of the 955. For me, I'm seeing about 2 weeks of battery life. But if you do opt for the solar version, you might get as much as an entire additional week of battery life, just depending on how much sunlight you're seeing. So to compare for me personally, in the way that I have things set up, I'm getting about twice as much battery life from the 955 non-solar when comparing it to the Epix. And I use both of these watches in that multi-band GPS mode, which is the most battery intensive GPS mode. And I would probably recommend that people not use that GPS mode, maybe just use the all systems GPS mode. But when I'm testing all of these watches, I do find myself using it to try to get the most accurate GPS tracking possible. But the 955 Solar can go up to 49 hours just using normal GPS. The non-solar that I have here goes about 42 hours. The 955 can go about 20 hours when you're using that multi-band GPS mode. That's the one I've been using, of course. That's plenty for me, 20 hours. The Epix can go 30 hours in GPS only mode or about 15 hours in the multi-band GPS mode. GPS accuracy is, absolutely fantastic on both of these watches. I would describe it, as, two of the best options on the market as far as GPS accuracy goes. I can sometimes see the Epix perform better, and I can sometimes see the 955 perform a little better. If I had to crown a winner, I'd probably go with the 955, but I really don't think that anyone should be, basing their buying decisions between the two watches on which one is the most accurate as far as GPS goes. They're basically the exact same. Now, I actually do think people might be basing their buying decisions on the weight between these two watches. The Epix is 76 grams for the steel version or 70 grams for the Epix titanium. I measured mine at 71 for whatever that's worth. 955 is 52 grams. For me personally, the weight isn't a huge deal, but I know some of you guys will be discouraged by that extra weight on your wrist. Now, both devices have the exact same Garmin Elevate 4.0 heart rate monitor with pulse ox built into the back of the watch. So the watches are collecting heart rate data throughout the day and during activities to help estimate your training status and how well you're recovering. And similar to, the GPS data, when you're comparing these two watches against, a very accurate chest heart rate strap, I'm seeing really good data, while, running, and no real discernible difference in accuracy between these two devices. If they're worn snugly on your wrist and you kind of wear them up above that wrist joint a little bit, I think you're gonna get some pretty good data here. And, technically the Epix just being a little bit heavier watch could bounce around a little bit more, which could affect heart rate data on these optical heart rate monitors. I just didn't personally see that issue. Now, here's what's a little bit crazy. As of the filming of this video, there's actually quite a few software features that are on the 955 that the Epix currently doesn't have. And my understanding is that all of those software updates will make their way over to the Epix Generation 2 and the Fenix 7 watches with a software update, sometime in the next few months. But when that does happen, I will try to make sure that I pin a comment to the top of the comment section below in this video so that you guys are just aware of that change. But currently, the Epix doesn't have heart rate variability, training readiness score, or this new morning report, and it just gives you kind of like this general summary of some of the new detailed metrics each morning. So on that morning report, you'll see, a little animated landscape art piece that's, reflective of the weather when you wake up. And if you choose to go into your morning report, it'll show you things like your training readiness score, which is an overall score of how ready you are to work out. That score is a combination of a lot of factors, including sleep and your recovery from your previous workout, your just general stress, as well as your HRV or heart rate variability. And HRV is something that's new on these watches. It's currently on the 955 and 255, but heart rate variability is measuring the amount of time in between heartbeats. And it's actually a really good metric for how recovered your body is. So higher variability actually means that your body is ready to work out. Lower variability means that your heart is beating steady at night and it's actually trying to recover. Everyone's HRV values are a little bit different, so it does take Garmin about 2 or 3 weeks just to establish a baseline. The Forerunner 955 also has a new feature where it can import a race from the Garmin Connect calendar in a new widget that shows details about your upcoming race. And your daily suggested workouts now actually accounts for that upcoming race on the calendar. Also, a few smaller items. For example, there's a native running power data metric. It's not taking power from third-party products like Stride foot pods. For that, you actually will need the Stride Connect IQ app to display that data, but it'll work with Garmin devices like the HRM Pro chest strap or their little pod thing that kind of, goes on the back of your shorts or wherever. And then, navigation is also a little different between the 955 and the Epix. And I would say it's definitely a lot smoother and more detailed on the Epix. And then, if you do end up pulling up one of those location detail points, you actually get a little bit more detail on the Epix in the Fenix than you do on the 955 for some reason. It'll show things like GPS coordinates, just slight differences for some reason. So, overall, and I find this very interesting, the 955 is a more affordable watch and yet actually provides more features than the more expensive Epix, currently as of the recording of this video. And yet, I still do kind of prefer the Epix. I really do like that bright, sharper display on this watch. There's also some, little things about the display that you would never think of. For example, that brighter display is just a little bit easier to see when I'm swimming and I'm underwater. And I also really like the way that this thing just kind of dims by default when it's in sleep mode. For me, it just kind of feels perfect. It's, visible when you need to check the time in the middle of the night, but it's, it's not glaringly bright like something like the Apple Watch or even some of Garmin's watches that have that backlight when it comes on with a gesture. If the prices were the same, I would definitely pick the Epix, just knowing that it'll eventually get those software updates, but it is such an expensive watch. What do you guys think? 955 or Epix? Let me know in the comment section. I do love hearing feedback from you guys when you've had these devices for a little bit. Hearing, your guys' experience definitely helps me make better videos. Either way, be sure to get out there, swim, bike, run, rinse, and then repeat it all over again. And we will see you guys on the next one.